Getting into Star Wars books can be a daunting prospect with something in the neighborhood of 200 novels between Legends and canon, but if you enjoyed a specific Star Wars show, in today's case Andor, then I'm going to try to recommend some books to hopefully help you find something to start with. No two projects are exactly alike, and personal tastes will always vary, so rather than just saying this show is good or bad, and you like good or bad things, so here's another good or bad thing, I'm going to try to explain what it is that may or may not appeal to you based on the similarities and differences from the show, whether that's connected subject matter or about the themes. My first recommendations for Andor fans are among my favorite Star Wars books overall, the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, so Alphabet Squadron, Shadowfall, and Victory's Price by Alexander Freed. These books may start out a bit slow, but I think a lot of people felt similarly to Andor with that, so that's probably not a deal breaker for Andor fans. But ultimately, I think the trilogy is one of the best at exploring its political themes, especially about the nature of redemption and loyalty, something I think it also shares with Andor. Specifically, I think the speech Luthen Rael gives about what he's sacrificed is something that would seem very familiar to many of the characters in the book, especially by the end. It is, in short, the story of an Imperial defector named Yrica Quell after Andor who joins the rebels as a fighter pilot and intelligence operative, leading a fighter squadron and slowly unraveling the real story behind her defection, and also what it means to seek redemption in a way that doesn't involve just dying in a sacrifice. The reactions of various characters to each other's situations and past, and the political themes around the rebellion's attempt to establish itself as a galactic power, and what the Empire is doing with Operation Cinder, should be interesting to fans of those kinds of ideas in Andor. And the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, along with Traitor in the New Jedi Order series, are some of the only Star Wars books that made me almost immediately want to go back in to reconsider what I had just read. The main thing that might turn some Andor fans off seems to be the fairly regular space combat scenes. Alphabet Squadron, while primarily an intelligence unit, is made up of fighter pilots, with each typically being assigned to other squads for actual combat since they all have different primary fighter types. But that is a pretty big part of the book, and when I was talking about doing this video with this connection, that was one of the main counterpoints that came up. So if that doesn't appeal to you, then you probably won't enjoy Alphabet Squadron as much as Andor. But that seems to be the big, main, and possibly only point of contention, so if that doesn't bother you, or if that's something that you actively enjoy like myself, then I think this is definitely one you should give a try. My next recommendation doesn't have the same reliance on space combat, so that criticism would be gone, but it does take us a bit farther out thematically from what Andor is doing, and away from the current canon continuity, into the old expanded universe from before Disney's buyout. This is the MedStar Duology. This is a pair of books, Battle Surgeons and Jedi Healer, set in the Clone Wars and dealing with a medical unit on the planet Drongar, including a surgeon named Jos Vandar and a Jedi Padawan who will be very familiar to people watching current shows named Barriss Offee. Drongar is home to a medical MacGuffin plant called Boda, which is very much in demand by the Republican Separatists, so that's what's being fought over. Essentially, the books were meant as a Star Wars MASH equivalent, but they take the galactic situation of the Clone Wars and the Jedi's role in it, and cut it down to this case study of these doctors on one world of many, examining what their role in a conflict like this might be and what implications it has on individuals like themselves. Jos's perspective is used to build up the perception of droids, clones, and some of the other characters, starting from a place where they're all seen as these kind of replaceable cogs in a machine to him, but over the course of the books, he's forced to see them a bit more completely, and much like Cassian's story in Andor, you're examining how the agency of those characters matters beyond the galactic machinations of the political entities to which they belong. Personally, I liked Battle Surgeon significantly more than Jedi Healer, but I still think both are pretty good, and I think you can comfortably come into Star Wars reading having not read other books and be able to pick these up. These are still Clone Wars era books with all the distinctions in content that come with that versus being something in the Galactic Civil War era like Andor, or even the post-Rebellion or New Republic era. So applicability there might be a stopping point for some people, but they're still books I'd recommend giving a look. If you want to look at Andor specifically as a look at galactic politics in Star Wars beyond just the themes that are political, then I have 3 other suggestions. First is another Legends book, which I will say up front is probably not one that most fans hold in the highest esteem. But in the era of post-Andor Legends, it's probably the most explicit in dealing with the politics of the New Republic, specifically in how the New Republic is dealing with some of the worlds left on the periphery. This book is called The New Rebellion, where a world called Almania falls under the leadership of the not at all subtly named Dolph or Lord Queller. Dolph was a former student of Luke's who returned home after his parents were killed by the prior government during their own tyrannical rule. for which Dolph blames the New Republic before starting his own tyrannical rule. And yes, this is a dictator named Dolph, who is running a place named Almania, very similar to what many other languages call Germany. Dolph teams up with one of Luke's other former students, Brachus, to execute his revenge against the New Republic, including the detonation of a bomb in the Senate. Now, to be clear, this is a 90s Star Wars novel, and that comes with a lot of the pulpiness you can expect from many of the books of that era. But it does provide that kind of galactic political examination, so I think there's some fun to be had here, and I think it does check some of the boxes that Andor fans might enjoy. But of the books I've mentioned so far, this is probably one where I'd say come in preparing to put it down if it's not doing it for you relatively quickly, compared to, say, the first recommendation of Alphabet Squadron, where I do recommend people try to stick with it a bit longer, even if it hasn't grabbed them immediately. The final two books I'm going to talk about are part of the new canon like Alphabet Squadron, and of course like Andor itself, but for these two, I haven't actually read them yet, so I can't comment on quality at all, aside from reputation and some knowledge of the plots and themes of the book. First, we have Bloodline by Claudia Gray, which is very much about the nature of the post-Andor government set up by the New Republic and the issues posed by varying loyalties within that, including latent Imperial sympathizers. As the title implies, this is also where Leia being the daughter of Darth Vader comes to light, and the book also deals with some of the political opposition Leia deals with because of that. Last, we have one that I am very excited to read, but haven't only because it is such a new release, having only come up in the last couple weeks, The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire by Dr. Chris Kempshall. This is a fun and unique premise for a book, written by someone with a background in academic writing rather than narrative fiction, essentially written as an in-universe history book by Beaumont Kim of the sequel trilogy, doing a study of the political and historical forces that led to, well, the rise and fall of the Galactic Empire, a play on the rise and fall of the Third Reich by William Shirer. Because of the nature of the author's other work, this includes a lot more actual analysis with a Star Wars twist, and it does include a lot of direct allusions to stuff from Andor, including Nemec. So well, again, this and Bloodline I have not personally read yet, this one in particular I'm very much looking forward to. But those are my big recommendations for where Andor fans can start to get into the books. Personal taste will always vary, so don't take this to mean you shouldn't read other books or that you'll definitely enjoy these ones. But if you have read some of these, let me know in the comments what you think of these recommendations, and let me know if there's anything important I've missed. Thanks for watching. I'll be doing this for all of the Star Wars shows, so if you want to make a recommendation for another show as well, then please do that too. This is definitely a video series where my personal opinions can only take us so far.